After the long and bloody war between Earth and the Virilian Empire, the galaxy finally saw peace. A treaty was signed, a historic document that ended years of destruction. As part of the peace agreement, the Virilians were ordered to provide assistance to the human soldiers who fought on the front lines. This assistance came in a very strange form. Each soldier was assigned 2 Virilian attendants. The government called them honor maids, not servants, but cultural aides meant to help soldiers adjust to peace. They would clean, cook, and offer company to the lonely veterans who had nothing to return to. It was meant to be a kind of reward. But not everyone saw it that way. Sergeant Marcus Weller stood in the docking bay of the Terran Military Zone 17, reading the document he had just received. It listed the names of his 2 Virilian attendants. He didn't recognize them, of course. No human really did. The aliens were new to Earth's systems and still barely understood how humans lived. His boots clicked against the metal floor as he walked toward the assigned room where the attendants were waiting. Around him, other soldiers laughed and joked as they met their Virilian maids, some already giving orders, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The Virilians were elegant beings with pale, bluish skin and small, pointed ears that made them look almost like elves from old Earth stories. Marcus wasn't interested in jokes or rewards. He had lost too much in the war to feel like a winner. When he opened the door to his quarters, he found one of the Virilian women already standing there. She stood tall and calm, with short silver hair and piercing violet eyes. But unlike the other maids he had seen around the base, she wasn't wearing the standard outfit. Instead of the soft white ceremonial robe that the treaty provided, she wore a dark, tight-fitting uniform, made from a flexible material that looked almost like armor. It was clear she had chosen it herself. Her stance was firm, and her arms were crossed. She looked like she was ready to fight again. "You must be Sergeant Weller," she said in perfect standard galactic. "I am," Marcus replied, keeping his voice neutral. "And you must be one of the 2 I've been assigned." "My name is Sarah," she said, not bowing, not smiling. "And I do not wear symbols of surrender." That caught him off guard. "You're supposed to be here in peace," Marcus said carefully. "Every Virilian aide has agreed to the customs." Sarah didn't flinch. "The treaty said I would serve. It did not say I would be dressed like a gift." Before Marcus could respond, the door opened again. A second Virilian woman stepped inside. She was different from Sarah, softer, quieter, with long flowing hair and a warm expression. She wore the ceremonial robe and carried a small box of supplies. "This is Luma," Sarah said, nodding toward her. "She is your second aide." Luma gave a gentle nod. "It's an honor to serve, Sergeant Weller." Marcus looked between the 2. He had expected obedience, maybe silence. But not this. Not this clash of personalities and beliefs. He wasn't even sure how to respond. "You can do what you want with the outfit," Marcus finally said to Sarah. "Just don't cause trouble." "I have no intention of causing trouble," Sarah replied. "But I will not pretend to be something I'm not." The conversation was short, but it stuck in Marcus's mind as he walked down the hall later that evening. Other soldiers were bragging about how their maids had brought them food, cleaned their rooms, or followed them silently around the base. But Marcus's maid had challenged him on day 1, and for some reason that made him curious. He didn't know yet that Sarah had once been a top strategist in the Virilian forces. He didn't know that she had volunteered for the treaty program, not to serve, but to observe. And he definitely didn't know that behind her strong words and cold behavior, there was a deeper mission that no one had told the humans about. All he knew was that out of all the alien maids in the base, his was the only one who refused to wear the robe. And somehow, that made all the difference. It had been only 1 day since the Virilian attendants arrived, but the soldiers already had plenty to talk about. Most of the aliens followed instructions, wore the robes given to them, and quietly assisted their assigned humans. Some men even boasted about how respectful and obedient their maids were. Sergeant Marcus Weller didn't join those talks. He was still thinking about Sarah. She wasn't what he expected at all. She spoke directly, stood with confidence, and dressed in clothes she had chosen herself. She hadn't broken any rules, but she didn't follow them either. Her attitude felt like a silent challenge. Back in his quarters, things were quiet. Luma, the second Virilian maid, moved gently around the room, organizing supplies and keeping things clean. She was kind, polite, and always offered help before Marcus asked. Sira, on the other hand, spent most of her time reading from a glowing tablet or looking out the window with a thoughtful expression. She wasn't lazy. She simply acted like she didn't belong in a servant's role. "Do you always just stand there?" Marcus asked her one evening. "I listen. I watch. I learn," Sira replied, without turning her head. "Doesn't sound like helping," he said, half joking. "I help in ways that matter," she said calmly. "You just don't see it yet." Marcus didn't argue. Something about her made him curious. She wasn't rude, just different, and he had learned in the war that different didn't always mean bad. Sometimes it meant dangerous. Sometimes it meant special. Later that night, Marcus joined a group of soldiers in the mess hall. The mood was light. Some were laughing about how their Virilians had trouble understanding human food. Others were already making bets on who had the most beautiful attendant. One soldier, Corporal Jensen, spotted Marcus and called out with a grin, "Hey, Weller, heard yours won't wear the dress. You get one of the broken ones." The table roared with laughter. Marcus didn't smile. "She's not broken, just has her own mind." Jensen smirked. "Sounds like trouble. If she won't act right, trade her in. Plenty of others happy to take her spot." Marcus didn't reply. He simply finished his food and walked away. The next morning, he found Sira outside the quarters, standing alone near the edge of the training grounds. She was watching the human soldiers run drills, her hands behind her back. "You used to be in the military, didn't you?" Marcus asked, walking up beside her. She nodded. "Virilian High Command. I was a strategy officer. I led battles against your people. And now you fold laundry and sweep floors?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. She didn't smile. "No. I observe. I learn. I protect." "Protect who?" "You." Marcus blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Sira said. "There are things your people don't see. Dangers that still exist. I didn't come here to serve. I came to watch for signs that the war isn't truly over." Her words were strange, but they felt honest. Before Marcus could ask more, Luma appeared behind them with a small box in her hands. "Breakfast is ready," she said with a gentle smile. Sira gave a quiet nod and followed Marcus back to the room. That evening, a small alert went off in the base. Nothing serious. Just a minor power failure in one of the lower corridors. But Sira stood up the moment the alarm sounded. She moved faster than Marcus expected, reaching for a small device on her belt. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To make sure it's not more than it seems." Marcus frowned. "That's the tech crew's job." "Maybe," Sira said, "but maybe it's something else." Without waiting, she slipped through the door and disappeared down the hallway. Marcus hesitated. Then, against his better judgment, he followed. He found her near the power room, crouched beside a wall panel. Her fingers moved quickly over the access screen. "This isn't just a system error," she said softly. "Someone tried to hide a signal spike. A transmission went out from this base, unauthorized." Marcus narrowed his eyes. Who would send a secret message from here? Sira stood and turned to him. "That's what I'm trying to find out. And it's why I refuse to play the part they expected of me. I came to protect peace, not pretend the war never happened." For the first time, Marcus saw her not as a servant or a stranger, but as someone who might know something very important. As they walked back to their quarters, Marcus asked quietly, "So, are you going to tell command?" Sira glanced at him. "No, not yet. I don't know who to trust." She stopped walking, looked at him seriously, and added, "Do I have your trust, Sergeant?" Marcus didn't answer right away. But deep down, he knew his life had just become more complicated and a lot more interesting. The base looked peaceful, but Sergeant Marcus Weller now knew that peace could be an illusion. Since the night Sira found the hidden signal, he had begun seeing things differently. Not everything was calm under the surface. He sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the data chip Sira had given him. She said it held the proof of the strange transmission, a coded signal someone had tried to send off-world. She hadn't told command. She said the wrong people might be watching. Luma entered the room, her soft steps almost silent. She placed a tray of food beside Marcus and looked at him kindly. "You haven't eaten today." Marcus gave a small nod. "Thanks, Luma." She sat across from him and lowered her voice. "Is it about Sira? You've both been tense since that alert." Marcus glanced at her. Luma was gentle and warm, but he had underestimated her. She noticed more than he thought. "She found something," Marcus said carefully. "Something that could mean trouble." "I believe her," Luma said without hesitation. "Sira is cautious, but never wrong." Marcus was surprised. "You trust her that much?" Luma smiled. "She was once my commander." He sat up straighter. "You served under her." "She saved my life during the war," Luma said softly. "And many others. She only joined the treaty program to protect those who couldn't protect themselves anymore." That explained a lot. Sira hadn't come to Earth to obey orders. She came to make sure no more lives were lost, on either side. Later that evening, Marcus found Sira on the roof of the main housing building. The stars were clear above, the sky quiet. She stood alone, arms folded, her eyes fixed on the stars. "You were Luma's commander?" Marcus asked, stepping beside her. "Yes," Sira said simply. "She's strong. Don't let her quiet nature fool you." "She told me why you're really here," Marcus said. "To protect your people." "And yours," she added. He looked at her carefully. "But why not tell the higher-ups? Why keep this to yourself?" Sira looked at him. "Because peace is fragile. One wrong report, one misunderstanding, and war could begin again. There are those on both sides who still want that." Marcus nodded slowly. He had seen enough during the war to believe her. "So what now?" he asked. "We wait," Sira said, "and we watch." The next day, something unusual happened. A Virilian attendant from another unit was caught trying to access restricted files. Command claimed it was a simple mistake, a translation error or curiosity, but Sira didn't believe it. That wasn't an accident, she told Marcus that night. He was looking for something, or someone. "You think someone gave him orders?" Marcus asked. Sira nodded. "I believe there is a small group, maybe a hidden cell, that never accepted the treaty. They could be trying to contact other Virilians or outside allies." "If that's true," Marcus said, "then someone could be planning to break the peace." Sira looked serious. "And we must stop them." Quietly. Over the next few days, the three of them, Marcus, Sira, and Luma, worked carefully. They acted like everything was normal, but they were gathering information, listening to conversations, and following strange movements in the base. Marcus began to see things he never noticed before. Small clues, odd behavior, Virilian attendants who acted differently from the others. It was like a game of shadows, and he was starting to understand the rules. One night, Sira showed Marcus a map of the base with marked locations. "These are the spots where strange signals were detected," she said. "3 of them are near communication towers. Someone is planning something." Marcus leaned closer. "Can we stop them?" "We can try," Sira said, "but we must be careful. If we move too early, they'll scatter. If we wait too long, they'll strike." Luma walked in with a small device in her hand. "I intercepted another signal. It's weak, but it came from inside the base. The message said, Phase 2 begins soon." That was enough for Marcus. We tell command now. Sira shook her head. No. We take one more step. One of the suspects will visit the supply room tomorrow night. If we catch him there, we'll have proof. Marcus agreed. He didn't like the risk, but Sira's instincts had been right so far. As the night approached, Marcus prepared himself. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was now part of something quiet and dangerous, something that could decide whether the treaty truly held. And through it all, he couldn't help but realize that the alien maid who refused to wear the robe was far more than just a maid. She was a protector. The storage room was dark and quiet. Sergeant Marcus Weller stood behind a stack of supply crates, barely breathing. Sira was beside him, calm and focused, while Luma waited outside as their lookout. The small hidden scanner in Sira's hand blinked silently. Someone was coming. Footsteps echoed down the metal hallway. Slow, careful. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. A tall Virilian male stepped inside, holding a small data pad. He looked around quickly, then moved toward a control panel near the back wall. He didn't see Marcus and Sira in the shadows. Sira gave a slight nod. Marcus moved quietly and stepped out from behind the crates. Don't move. The Virilian froze. His hand hovered above the panel. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sira walked forward. We know what you're doing. The signals, the messages. You're part of the group trying to restart the conflict. The Virilian slowly turned. His eyes narrowed. You shouldn't be here, Sira. I could say the same to you, she replied. He laughed lightly, but it was cold. You betrayed your own kind. You wear a human uniform now. Sira didn't flinch. I didn't betray anyone. The war ended. You're the one refusing peace. The Virilian said nothing, but the look in his eyes confirmed everything. Marcus stepped closer. You're going to tell us what's going on. Right now. Instead of answering, the Virilian threw down a small device. It exploded in a burst of light and smoke, forcing Marcus to cover his face. By the time the smoke cleared, the Virilian was gone. Luma, Sira called into her comm. He's running. I see him. Luma's voice came through, sharp and alert. Marcus and Sira sprinted out of the room. The base lights flickered as the alert system activated. Luma chased the Virilian down the hall, but he turned sharply and disappeared through a side exit. By the time Marcus and Sira reached her, the attacker was gone. Only a trail of footprints and a drop data pad remained. Sira picked it up. He left this on purpose. He wanted us to find it. Back in their quarters, the three sat around the table, looking at the datapad. It was locked, but Sira quickly bypassed the code. The files inside were chilling. There were maps of the base, communication logs, and a list of Virilian attendants with strange marks beside their names. Some were already marked active. Others were marked awaiting signal. They've built a sleeper cell, Sira said softly. Virilians placed here through the treaty, but loyal to the old empire. They've been hiding, waiting. Marcus clenched his fists. And no one saw this. Because no one wanted to, Luma said gently. Everyone believed the war ended perfectly, but peace isn't that simple. Sira nodded. These agents plan to strike from inside, sabotage the base, break the treaty, and blame it on humans. That would restart the war. And if we tell command? Marcus asked. Sira looked uncertain. We have to be careful. If the traitors have people inside command, the warning might be ignored or twisted. Marcus stood and began pacing. So what do we do? Wait for them to attack? No, Sira said firmly. We act first. Quietly. We expose one of them. Just one. In front of everyone. That will create doubt among their own group. Slow them down. Break their unity. Luma looked up. And if they fight back? Marcus answered, then we'll be ready. Over the next 2 days, the three worked in secret. They used the stolen data to watch a Virilian who was marked as active. He worked in the base's food storage, far from attention. On the surface, he looked normal, polite, quiet, helpful. But they saw how he passed messages using food containers, how he entered locked areas without permission, how he met with others in hidden corners. Then, on the third day, Sira gave the signal. Marcus stood in the cafeteria as the suspect moved toward the storage door. In front of a dozen soldiers and other Virilians, Marcus called out, "Stop right there." Everyone turned as Marcus, Sira, and Luma stepped forward. Sira held up the data pad, projecting the proof on the wall. Messages, maps, the suspect's name and face. The Virilian turned to run, but this time he didn't get far. 2 guards caught him and dragged him back. The room fell silent. Soldiers whispered. Other Virilians stared in shock. Sira stepped forward. "This is not about revenge. This is about truth. Some among us still wish for war. But most of us came here for peace. We must protect it, together." For the first time, humans and Virilians nodded together. Later that night, Marcus sat in his room. He looked at Sira and Luma. "You did more than protect me," he said. "You may have just saved the entire base." Sira gave a small smile. "I told you, I help in ways that matter." And now, Marcus believed her. The days that followed were tense. The base had officially confirmed the identity of the traitor. The Virilian who had tried to sabotage the peace treaty was locked away, but the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Many soldiers now wondered how many more sleeper agents were hiding among them. The trust they had in their Virilian attendants was shaken. The peace they had fought for seemed more fragile than ever. Sergeant Marcus Weller found himself looking at Sira with a new respect. She had warned him. She had known. But now he felt the weight of the decisions she had made, walking the line between loyalty to her people and to humanity. She had acted, and in doing so, saved lives. But what would the future hold for a Virilian who had betrayed her own kind to protect humans? Marcus wasn't sure. Luma, on the other hand, seemed less concerned. She had worked closely with Sira during the war and had always trusted her judgment. She remained quiet but calm, helping Marcus when he needed advice or insight. That afternoon, Marcus sat in his quarters, reviewing the reports that had flooded in from all parts of the base. The sabotage attempt had been stopped, but there were still whispers about the treaty and the true intentions of the Virilian people. His door chimed. He stood up, half expecting to see Luma, but it was Sira. "Sergeant," she said, entering without waiting for a response. "We need to talk." Marcus gestured to the chair. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Sira hesitated before sitting. "I think there's something you need to know. Something important." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" "I've been monitoring the communication channels," she said, her voice lower than usual. "There's a plan to test the loyalty of all the Virilians stationed here. They want to see if we're truly committed to the peace agreement or if we're secretly harboring any dissent." "And what does that mean for us?" Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing. "They'll start questioning our motives," Sira said. "It could go both ways. Either the humans will turn on the Virilians, or the Virilians will turn on the humans. They want to know who stands with them, and who stands against them." Marcus rubbed his forehead, trying to digest the information. "Are we at risk of losing everything?" Sira's expression softened. "No, not if we act fast. But we need to be ready for anything. Some of the soldiers might already be suspicious, the Virilian agents that were exposed, those who wanted to restart the war. They might try again." Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the vastness of the base. "We need to make sure nothing like this happens again. We can't keep living in this uncertainty." "I agree," Sira replied. "But it's not just about stopping one agent. It's about showing that we trust each other, humans and Virilians. The treaty was supposed to bring us together, but now we're standing on the edge." Marcus turned around, meeting her gaze. "I didn't expect any of this. I didn't expect you to be so willing to risk everything for this peace. Sura looked down at her hands. I'm not just risking my life. I'm risking my people's future. The treaty might be fragile, but if we don't trust each other, then what's the point? We'll never have peace. A long silence fell between them. Marcus realized that Sura wasn't just a maid or an attendant. She was a soldier, just like him, fighting for something bigger than herself. She had risked everything to protect this fragile peace. After a moment, Marcus finally spoke. So, what do we do next? We watch, we wait, and we make sure that we have each other's backs, Sura replied. The next few days will be crucial. If we show even the smallest sign of doubt, the peace will collapse. 2 days later, the base was put on high alert again. This time, it wasn't a sabotage attempt. It was a message. A broadcast appeared on every screen, in every hallway of the base. The message was short but clear. We know who you are. We know who stands with the treaty. And we will not forgive you. The Virilian agents that had been hiding in plain sight were making their move. The entire base went on lockdown. Soldiers ran to their posts, and officers scrambled to keep control. But Marcus, Sura, and Luma knew this wasn't just another routine attack. It was a signal that the real conflict was about to begin. They're trying to force us into a corner, Marcus said as they stood in the security room, watching the chaos unfold. We won't back down, Sura said firmly. We've worked too hard for this peace. Luma nodded. Now, we protect it. But as Marcus watched the chaos outside, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get worse before they got better. Loyalties were being tested, and even those who seemed the most loyal were starting to show cracks. Would they be able to hold the peace together, or would the war they fought so hard to end come back to haunt them? The base was in chaos. The message had come through loud and clear, and now every soldier, every Virilian, was on high alert. Marcus Weller stood in the central command room, staring at the flashing maps on the walls, trying to make sense of the situation. The Virilian sleeper cells had been activated, and the entire base was at risk. We can't wait for command to act, Marcus said, looking at Sura. Need to move now. Sura nodded. They'll hesitate. It's up to us. Luma stepped forward. We need to separate the loyal Virilians from the traitors. We can't let them mix together. I agree, Marcus said. We've got a few hours before the chaos spreads further. We need to take control of the central command post. The three of them gathered their gear. The mood was tense but focused. For Marcus, this felt like another mission, except this time, the stakes were higher. It wasn't just the enemy they had to fight. It was fear, doubt, and the possibility that the peace they had worked so hard to achieve might slip away. As they moved through the hallways, Marcus noticed the nervous glances from the soldiers. They were confused. Some didn't know who to trust anymore. Was it the Virilians, or was it the humans they had fought alongside? Everyone seemed to be second-guessing their allies. They're spreading misinformation, Sura said quietly, watching as a few Virilians spoke in hushed voices with soldiers, making us question each other. Yeah, I can see it, Marcus replied. We'll have to sort this out fast. They reached the central command post, where a group of soldiers was already stationed. They looked unsure as Marcus and the others approached. We need control of this room, Marcus said. Now. One soldier stepped forward, clearly hesitant. And why should we trust you, Weller? Everything's gone wrong since the treaty. How do we know you're not just like the rest of them? Marcus didn't flinch. Because I've been fighting for peace since the beginning. We've got Virilian traitors working inside, and we're going to expose them, right here. So either you help us or stand aside. Sura stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. We've been through worse together. This is no different. Help us end it now. The soldier hesitated but then nodded. All right. You've got my vote. The command room was tense. Every screen showed the growing uncertainty among the troops. It was clear that the message from the traitors had shaken everyone. But it wasn't just the soldiers who were affected. Virilian attendants, once docile and obedient, were now being watched carefully by their human counterparts. Syra, Luma, and Marcus moved quickly, taking charge of the command station. The first order of business was to secure the communication channels. They couldn't afford to let the traitors send any more messages out. "Lock down all outgoing communications," Syra ordered. "We don't want them getting any word to their allies." Luma worked the consoles, typing rapidly as she locked down the communication feeds. Marcus kept an eye on the door, ready to take action if the situation escalated. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the room grew. The soldiers were on edge. Some had already started to question their Virilian attendants, accusing them of being part of the traitor faction. The room was split, and every glance felt like a potential trigger for violence. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the main screen. A small group of Virilian agents had been spotted moving toward the main hangar. "It's happening," Marcus said. "They're making their move." Syra didn't hesitate. "We need to stop them. Now." They gathered their weapons and headed out of the command room, moving swiftly through the hallways. The hangar was just a few floors down, and they needed to act before the traitors could get away. The stakes had never been higher. When they arrived at the hangar, they saw the Virilian agents standing near a small shuttle, preparing to board. "Stop," Marcus shouted. The traitors turned, their eyes filled with cold determination. They were outnumbered, but their confidence was unshaken. "We're not going back," one of them sneered. "The treaty was a mistake. We're going to finish what we started." Syra stepped forward, her eyes locked on the traitor. "You're wrong. The war is over. You can't start it again." The traitor's lips curled into a smile. "You think the humans will let you live? You think they'll trust you after this?" "I don't need their trust," Syra replied calmly. "I only need to stop you." With that, a fierce battle erupted in the hangar. Gunfire echoed off the walls, and the air was thick with tension. Marcus, Syra, and Luma fought with everything they had. They knew that if they failed here, it would be the end of the fragile peace they had all worked for. Syra moved with precision, taking down one of the traitors as he tried to fire at Luma. Marcus was right behind her, watching her every move. He had seen soldiers fight with bravery before, but this was different. This wasn't just about winning. It was about protecting everything they had fought for. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like an eternity. When the dust finally settled, the traitors were taken down, and the shuttle was secured. Syra turned to Marcus, her expression calm but focused. "We've done it, but there's more to do. This isn't over." Marcus nodded. "I know, but we've shown them that peace is stronger than their hatred." For the first time in days, he felt hope. The uprising within had been stopped, but the war for peace was far from over. The hangar was still, the echoes of battle fading into the distant hum of the base. Marcus Weller stood at the edge of the ship, his weapon lowered but his senses on high alert. The battle was over, at least for now, but the weight of what had just happened settled heavily on his shoulders. Syra stood next to him, her eyes scanning the area with sharp focus. She had been the one to lead the charge, to stop the Virilian traitors from escaping with their dangerous plans. Yet even now there was no celebration in her demeanor, just quiet determination. "Are we done?" Marcus asked, his voice tired but strong. "For now," Syra replied, her voice steady. "But this is only a small victory. There are still others who will test the peace." Marcus nodded. He understood. The threat hadn't disappeared completely. It had only been contained. For every traitor they had stopped, there were likely others, hidden and waiting for the right moment. The treaty between humans and Virilians was fragile. A single spark could set the entire galaxy on fire again. Luma stepped forward, wiping her brow, looking relieved but no less serious. "We've neutralized the immediate threat. The communication channels are secure again, and the traitors are either captured or dead. But we still have a lot of work ahead." Marcus turned toward her. "What do you suggest?" "We rebuild the trust," Luma said, "It's the only way forward. The humans and Varillians who were loyal to the peace have to stand together. We can't let fear tear us apart." Sira crossed her arms, looking toward the other soldiers who had gathered outside the hangar. "Luma's right. We can't just go back to pretending that everything is fine. We need to make sure that the treaty becomes more than just words on paper. It has to be something we all believe in." Marcus watched as Sira's words sank in, not just for him, but for the soldiers around them. For the first time, he saw the true depth of the situation. It wasn't just about stopping a few bad actors. It was about creating something new, something lasting. It was about making the peace real. "You're right," Marcus said. "But how do we rebuild that trust?" Sira's gaze softened. "We do it one step at a time. We show them that we're willing to fight for each other, not just for our own sides. That means showing the Varillians that they can trust us, and showing the humans that they can trust the Varillians." Marcus glanced around the hangar. The soldiers were gathering, slowly, cautiously, eyeing each other. Some exchanged uncertain glances, still unsure whether to trust the Varillians beside them. There were wounds that ran deeper than any battle scar, and they would take time to heal. "Let's start small," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We'll bring the soldiers together. Have them sit down, talk it out, whatever it takes to remind them that we're all in this together. We need to make them see that the